not Hearts of Iron, that's Düsseldorf. Well, yes, today there is a special video. Before I start to explain anything, I need to tell you that right before this recording, my fucking main screen broke. So to record and cut this shit will be a pain in the ass. I was in Düsseldorf for the dokomi, but right before I was for the dokomi in Düsseldorf, I was there with my university and my history professor because he wanted to tell and show us something of historical towns. So I had a lot of information about historical buildings and towns, and I went to Düsseldorf again, and I wanted to make a vlog for my German anime channel about the dokomi. So I was like, why shouldn't I try to make an English vlog? And because this is somewhat a history channel, I can go to historical buildings and explain them. I really like to explain history. Maybe that's the reason why I'm studying history. All in all, in this video there will be only a really small part about the dokomi because you seemed to don't want to know anything about the convention, so I guess okay. If you want to see more about this convention, just look on my German channel and speak German. Skills you if you can speak German. Yes, 50 likes and there will be another video of this kind where I explore my hometown. It would take a lot more effort because I would plan it way better than this one, because this one is rather chaotic. Yeah, I'm at my train station. That's my town. I really love this. It's a, I think, really big train station for this town. Partly because it's old and it was built when this was a really important town. This isn't such an important town anymore because of the Nazis. Another reason why I hate Nazis. We should burn them all. Witch burning. Yeah! Anyway, like I said, I'm at my train station. I just wanted to record something ugly. Yeah, now we are at the Rhine. Yeah, Rhine. Doesn't matter. We need to go over this bridge and behind the big wheel. Yeah, giant wheel, I don't know. Behind this thing there should be a hostel, I guess.
You speak English. It's like I speak in German to you.
My English is beautiful.
Your English is German.
I have the best English in the world.
Your English is
I have the best English in the world. Where is the German in my name coming from? I don't know.
The German is in your accent.
In my accent? Which accent? Allegra. So, because there were a lot of people praying in this church, I just whispered, and because I hate ASMR, I'm recording this in an aftermatch again. The church you can see is the St. Andreas Church, which was the court church for the Lord family in Düsseldorf when it was constructed in 1629. Before that, the court church was St. Lambertus, which I will show later in the video. It was the court church until the Prussians took over, which was in the Napoleonic Wars. The church was destroyed twice. The first time in a battle between Napoleon's forces and the Prussians, and the second time was in the Second World War, where it was basically completely annihilated. It is a Jesuiten church. I don't have a fucking clue what a Jesuit is. It was constructed back in the day because there was a conflict in the succession, and the winner of this conflict wanted the help of a special part of the church. So he said, I'm now a part of this church thingy. There's not much to tell about this because I'm explaining a lot of things later. God damn, my mates. This is a really important building. It was the point where the British government after World War II resided. There they built the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. Before that, this was the office of the only company in the world who could build steel pipes. They invented a really efficient method of producing steel pipes. This has like a really big architecture story behind it. Because I was too stupid to explain this, here is the better explanation. The architect who constructed this building was more or less the inventor of minimalist architecture. This thing was built in a time where a lot of new buildings, especially of rich companies, had a lot of decorations. And this sounds a little bit weird, but he was one of the first ones who just didn't add any decorations. This building would be an example for later architects. Yeah. Good English, yes. Welcome back to the best English in the world. There is the castle tower. Okay, hold it. I need to complain about something. In German, we have 4 words for different castles. Schloss, Burg, Festung, and Palast. Palast can be somewhat translated with palace. Festung is a bastion, but Schloss and Burg are both castle, which is completely wrong. Schloss is basically a mansion which was constructed for the lord or the lady or some royal highness to live a good life, while the Burg's main purpose was to defend something. Why isn't there a good translation for Schloss? The best translation there is would be palace, but a Schloss isn't a palace. A Schloss is more or less a little palace, and at least the predecessor of the palace. But it's just stupid. Why isn't there a difference in English? And yeah, this tower is the only remaining part of the Schloss of the Lord family who reigned in Düsseldorf. That's why I'm arguing that it's not a castle, it's not a burg. They're direct English. Eat shit.
There is the castle tower, or it's not really a castle, it's more like a Schloss. This is the remaining part of the castle of the family who once ruled over this town and the region. This castle burned down twice. The first time in the Napoleonic War, and the second time later, way later, when the family was already dead, or at least didn't rule over the town anymore. So the new family, the Hohenzollern, the family who ruled Preußen, this was like the capital of the Rhine province. They did not need this castle, so they just destroyed everything except this tower. Today this is a museum for the marine thingies that happened here, like there are a lot of ship models and so on and so on. It's not really interesting, I think it's rather boring. Also, this isn't the original tower. The only remaining original parts are some parts of the walls, because it was directly hit by a bomb in the Second World War. So there was a bomb that hit the roof and crashed down to the ground. Not a single floor, the entire layout, the entire stairs, everything isn't original anymore. I asked them if it was reconstructed or if it's like completely new interior design. They couldn't tell me. We are now at the city hall. The city hall here in Düsseldorf isn't that old and not that big, because this dude has the power and not the mayor. The mayor? Major? Not the people of this town had the power, but the family who ruled over this. Unlike in Hamburg or Leipzig, where the people of the town had a lot of power, where they built a gigantic city hall. This one is rather small. As far as I remember, this is the original part, which was funded by this fella. This part was home of a famous architect. At some point they were connected. I don't know.
So that's Sant Lambertus, or Basilica Sant Lambertus. I explained something while recording this, but again I whispered because there were people inside who prayed and I didn't want to disturb them. This is one of the oldest remaining buildings in Düsseldorf. Like I said, this was the court church, but originally it was constructed as a rather small building from the villagers who founded Düsseldorf. If you didn't know, the name Düsseldorf translates to Düssel village, or village at the Düssel, which was a small river at whom the village was founded. They constructed this church and you can still see some remains of this. If you compare both churches, you can clearly see that the older one wasn't as richly decorated. It wasn't that expensive to build, because Düsseldorf wasn't the capital city, the residential city of the lords who ruled over this town. Later, when they settled in Düsseldorf, they also improved the church. So a lot of interior and artworks and so on and so on and so on are from the time after they moved into Düsseldorf. If you look into this church, one thing you should suspect are a lot of old paintings, a lot of old graves, a lot of old shrines, because the church was the symbol of power for the ruler. Not a castle, not a schloss. There were no schlosses in the Middle Ages. There were just castles, and castles were to defend, not really to greet visitors, for example. So a lord or even a mayor, anyone who had some kind of power, invested in one or two churches to represent and legitimate his power to tell the people, hey, I invest into the church. I'm truly a believer. I have the right to rule. So if you look into the church, you see a lot of paintings of old lords praying, for example. That was the solely reason why they invested so much in churches. And that's the reason why churches are important objects. A lot of lords also were buried in churches. It's really fascinating and an aspect I think most people don't realize. It's interesting, and this church is a prime example of a lot of shrines and graves and so on and so on and so on and so on. It's fascinating and it really looks cool, if I'm honest.
So, more history lesson. It was more or less a surprise for us that we are now at the Königsallee. In English it should be somewhat like King's Alley or King's Street. This was, once upon a time, one of the biggest streets in all of Europe, at least if you count how wide it is. It was built when the town wall was torn down, and
I think the correct translation should be town moat, but I'm not quite sure. It's the water thingy that's around the town wall to protect the town.
Was transformed into this.
There's a whole story about how they discussed back then if they should strengthen the tower moat or if they should just build a street around it. They decided to straighten it.
This street is famous for a lot of reasons. Like I said, it's a really big street. It's somewhat beautiful, even though there's a lot of rubbish in there. And most famous part, the Tritonbrunnen, that's back there, is sadly broken. It's for several reasons famous. For example, the King's Street was named like that because
there was an incident with the Prussian king shortly after the March revolutions in Germany, where the parliamentspeople who tried to make an unified and somewhat democratic Germany proposed to the Prussian king that he should become the new emperor of Germany, and he declined. Like I said, shortly after that, the Prussian king visited Düsseldorf, and Düsseldorf was mostly on the side of the revolutionaries. So they were not just a lot of curses, at least in a legend. There was someone who threw horse shit at the Prussian king. And Düsseldorf, or at least the mayors of the city, were panicking to compensate for this incident. They renamed their most famous street, the Kastanienallee or Chestnut Alley, to King's Alley or Königsallee.
yeah, that's the story behind this alley. There are a lot of architecture stories and how they made this straight and so on and so on. And there are also a lot of statues. But if I'm honest, it's mostly ugly. There are also little tiny baby birds. I really love birds. It's somewhat funny, but there are a lot of drug addicts and a lot of rubbish.
Because that was once upon a time the border of Düsseldorf. This is somewhat the border of the district with old buildings to the district with newer buildings. Another thing that's rather interesting, because the King's Alley is so famous, there are a ton of shops for really rich people. But just on one side. On the other side, they are not.
I'm finished. Bye bye.
Sadly, that's it. That's where all recordings where I spoke in English and or about old buildings. If I'm honest, this type of vlog wasn't really planned, and like I said, if I'm doing somewhat like this ever again, I need to plan this a lot better. Finally, for just 1 minute, discuss the dokomi itself. Like I said, I was in Düsseldorf for the dokomi. I was a little bit disappointed. The dokomi is nothing more than a huge marketplace for anime, manga, and Japan stuff. That's rather boring, especially if you are 3 days on this convention. I need to admit, I like marketplaces. I love to go on markets. I love to go on flea markets. Even I were bored latest on the 2nd day. So I went through the dokomi, asked people, do you have fun? Do you still have fun after 1 or 2 days? Everyone that said yes just said, I have a lot of fun because I'm meeting friends. And I was like, bro, if I want to meet friends, I won't pay 80 euros to go on a marketplace. I would go somewhere that's not that expensive or that's just providing me with something else to have fun. There were no real attractions. There were no real decorations. There wasn't even music from the dokomi. It was just boring, honestly. But I had fun because I made my video and I met friends, so it's okay, I guess. But if you were never on a dokomi, think about it, especially if you are alone and don't plan on meeting someone there.